So right now we're going to be prepping the cane for pressing, and the first step is to remove the seed heads. So we're just going to cut a few inches below the seed head. Let's just snip it off. And you can use the seeds to feed your livestock, or even to replant your patch next year. So these seeds are actually mature enough that when they dry, they'll germinate next year for your future sorghum patch. We're just going to go down the rows and cut these seed heads off, and then we'll move on to the next step. So the next step in the process is actually to remove the leaves from the cane. And the idea behind that is the leaves contain some sap that has some off flavors that doesn't taste very good, so you don't want to put it through the press. So we're just going to go through the planting with our gloves on and just rip all the leaves off. And we'll end up with just a bare leafless cane. Now you can leave the leaves on. It's a pretty labor intensive process, so if you're growing sorghum on a larger scale, you can leave the leaves on, but you want to harvest your cane well ahead of time then, so that the leaves dry down, so that when you put the cane through the press, the dry leaves won't contribute any of the sap and you won't get any of those bad flavors. So now that we have all the leaves off of the cane, the next step in the process is to cut the stalks. And to do that, we're just going to take our pruners and cut just above where the highest roots are. So we're going to go above this node here and cut that off. And then we're going to take all of our cut cane and bundle it together, tie it together with some twine, and transport it to where we're going to be doing the pressing. So this is another planting of the same variety, Sugar Drip. And as you can see, it's much taller and the stalks are much thicker diameter. And this is how big it's supposed to get when you tend the plot well. This is in our display garden, and so we spent a lot more time weeding, and the soil is probably a little better. And so that's why these plants are so much taller, but it's the same variety, and this is what you would expect to get if you were growing it commercially and taking really good care of your plants. So we're going to cut these plants as well and put them through the press. Yeah. So today we're pressing the sorghum cane that we harvested on Monday, and this is called this variety is called Sugar Drip. It's an old commercial variety of sorghum that has been grown all over the country for sorghum syrup. And this is our press, and we're basically feeding the cane in to the press on this end, a few canes at a time. And Calvin is turning the wheel, and we've got a few rollers in the press, and these rollers are spaced at a certain distance so that we extract as much sap from the canes as possible. And so here you can see the sap basically drips down from the rollers into this plastic pan, and there's a sieve on top that filters out some of the bigger particles. And then the sap drains through this plastic tubing downhill. Gravity feeds right into this bucket. And we have about almost 3 gallons of sap. just from our first bundle of cane, and I believe we harvested about 7 or 8 bundles. So we'll get quite a bit of sap. And this is what the freshly pressed sap looks like. It's this pea green color. It's really kind of pretty. And it's very sweet, so we actually tested the sugar content of this sap with a tool called a refractometer. And we use this quite a bit in our evaluations. It measures the sugar content. What you do is you just put a little bit of your liquid on this lens, and then it refracts the light at different distances based on the sugar content. And then you look through it, and ideally the sorghum cane that you harvest would be between about 14 and 17% sugar, or bricks, which is the units that the refractometer measures. This stuff actually tested at over 20. So I don't know why it was so high. It might have been the dry summer that we had, but I think we just got kind of lucky. So we are expecting to get quite a bit of syrup from this sap. But this is the first step in the process, and once we press all of our cane, we will take this sap and put it into our boiler, which is basically a big evaporator pan. We have a staff member here who had one for maple syruping, so we'll use that. And we will show you that process when we get to it. But for now, we've got quite a bit more pressing to do, and hoping to get a lot more sap. So the next step in the process is actually boiling the sap. So here we have an evaporator pan, which is a maple syruping setup, and it's a stainless steel pan over a 2-burner camp stove, and we're just running it off of propane. This sap actually sat in a bucket, and it sat in there for a couple of hours, and that enabled some of the starches and sediment to settle to the bottom. And after a couple of hours, we just drained the liquid off the top and put that in the pan. If you don't let your liquid sit, some of those starches could make your syrup gel, and then you get a really thick syrup, which is not really usable. So here we have about 8 gallons of sap in here, and it's almost reached boiling point. We're just gonna let this boil, and that'll evaporate the water. It's gonna be a several hour long process, and we're actually gonna be continuously adding more sap as we finish pressing the canes. But during this boiling process, we have to continuously skim off some of the foam that appears. So the foam is just basically impurities that rise to the surface. And we just take our slotted spoon here and collect it. It's actually pretty clean right now. So we'll just do that continuously throughout the process. And then as we get, as the water boils off and we get a thicker sap that is starting to turn into syrup, we'll actually closely monitor the temperature of the sap with this candy thermometer. We'll know when this is at the syrup stage by the temperature, and the temperature should be about 224 or 225 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're a long way from that point, so we don't have to monitor the temperature just yet. Right now it's just a matter of boiling this sap and skimming off the foam. So we're nearing the end of the process here. We're still boiling the sap, but we've reduced the volume by a lot. We started with about 12 gallons, and we are maybe down to 2 or 3. We've been boiling for about 4 hours now, and it's starting to get dark, so hoping the process is coming to an end. But you can see the color has changed from the pea green to more of a dark brown, caramelized color. And throughout this process, I've been skimming the foam off the top. The foam is just impurities that rise to the surface. And I've also been monitoring the temperature with this candy thermometer here. And right now we are at about 222 degrees. So not too far away from where we want to be. The syrup is done when the temperature reaches about 224, 225 degrees. So not too much longer. And we hope it wraps up here before it gets dark, but we'll show you the final product once we have it.
Whoa.
Ooh. What do they call it? Is this like liquid gold? I'm so happy.
Your eyes are smiling. Yeah, your eyes are smiling.
All right, so finally we have our finished product. We've boiled down our sap into our syrup. We started with about 12 gallons of sap, and we ended up with roughly 1.5 gallons of syrup. So the syrup is this beautiful amber-colored sorghum syrup after 6 hours of boiling. The moon is out. It is completely dark, but this syrup tested at 225 degrees Fahrenheit, which is how we knew it was done. So we taste tested it, and it was really good, and we're pretty excited and proud of our day's work. So thanks for watching, and if you plan on making your own sorghum syrup, I hope it's a success, and I hope you're able to use some of the things you learned to make it a success.